Hello, welcome back to the Analyzing Video of Classroom Practice to Understand UDL Online Learning Strand. The last three modules are organized slightly differently. Modules 7, 8, and 9 will be considered one combined module, and during this time period, you'll use the Designing and Redesigning Learning template to work through a design as a team, to work through the analysis of a lesson as a team, and then to work through a redesign of a lesson as a team. You can find that document in Moodle. You'll see both a digital version that you can write in, or you'll see a PDF version that you can photocopy so that you have that to see during the slides. So how should we navigate all of this? 3 modules all in one. It's recommended that you preview the slide deck and this video. It will not be too long, less than 10 minutes. And then to develop a learning plan and a schedule for your team's learning at the end. You'll see a slide that says, what is our plan for this work? And you'll be nudged to do that work at the end of this slideshow. Then you'll be able to return to the slides and navigate to where the step that you're on across the series of meetings. So modules 7, 8, and 9 don't have a focus because the focus at this point is really the work that is percolating up for you as a team. Perhaps it's from your instructional rounds work, or perhaps it's another area of focus that you just want to consider in your setting. Pause the slides, take a moment, talk with each other, and decide upon a focus for your work. What would you like to focus on? And just record that as a note. In Module 7, 8, and 9, across this period of time, you will do 4 things as a team. The first is to design a lesson. The second is to support the team member who teaches and somebody else who videotapes the lesson. You'll identify barriers by reviewing the videotaped lesson as a team during one of your meetings, and then redesigning the lesson as a team. The lesson will already have been taught, but as an act of professional learning, you'll redesign the lesson, noticing the barriers that had arisen when you watch the learning. Step 1 is that you'll design a lesson. One of your team members hopefully will volunteer his or her classroom, explain a little bit about a goal that he or she needs to create a learning design for, and then describe learners and the setting and the materials and the resources, and the team can work through the template for design and redesign collaboratively and begin to design that lesson. Remember your focus as you do so. So for example, if my focus as a team is to really be intentional about designing reflective moments for learners to engage in self-assessment, I want to keep that in mind as I'm designing the lesson. The first step that you'll be asked to take using this template is to establish the goal and describe that learning goal using the questions on the right as thinking questions, questions that can nudge your reflective practice and help you apply UDL theory to practice. And then you'll engage with that first iteration of design, your plan for assessment, and the learning experiences, the materials, the resources, the environmental options that you may have in mind as you think about how you might support learners, all learners, to reach that goal. Before we go further, please pause the tape again and just reflect back to your area of focus as a team. As you think about the lesson that you're designing and you think about learners, what is it that they might be doing or saying that really demonstrates, that is evidence of the fact that you have intentionally designed options into that lesson for them, perhaps in the example that I've used around self-assessment. What might learners be doing and saying that really is evidence that they are engaged in monitoring their own progress, reflecting, and self-assessing their work? Then step 2 is that a team member teaches this lesson to his or her students and another team member records it with video. There are appropriate permissions in the Moodle module at the top of our online learning strand. Any questions about those forms, please let me know. sashapiro@cast.org. There's also a frequently asked questions sheet in the online module at the top section that answers some of your questions as well. After the lesson is taught, your team will come together again another time. This might be another meeting. This might be the second meeting in the same month. That's up to your team to design. And you'll watch the video and analyze the lesson, looking for any unintentional barriers in the design. Even when we design using UYell, we know that sometimes there are barriers that exist that we didn't anticipate in the curriculum, in the materials, the methods, the assessments, or even in the learning environment. What we're not looking for is barriers in the learners. We're not looking for learners who have labels of being 3 years below grade level. We're not looking for learners who have attention issues. We're looking for design flaws. One of my colleagues says that barriers are actually just design flaws. We didn't think about that. We didn't think about the fact that it would take a really long time to explain the instructions, and that long period of time might be a barrier to some of the learners understanding those instructions. So take a look at the video, talk amongst yourselves, take reflective notes on your own, and make a list of all the barriers that still exist, not in learners, but in the curriculum. Again, using the template, it will nudge you in a reflective practice, in your reflective practice, to think a little bit about where those barriers might live. And just a reminder to make a list of those barriers. You'll be returning to that list later in the module. And step 4, again, maybe right after you watch that videotape, or perhaps at another meeting of your team, you'll begin to engage in a redesign of the lesson. Not redesigning the goal, because hopefully those questions that you use to reflect on your goal really secured that your goal was rigorous, that it was relevant, that it was separate from the means. So you'll look again at the assessments, you'll look again at the learning experiences, and using the design and redesign template, make some new decisions. Think a little bit about tweaking that lesson. Perhaps there's one little piece that you'll change because there's a barrier that you found that you need to remove. Perhaps there are multiple places that you'll do some redesign, but use your list of barriers, and as you redesign and you remove the barrier, cross it off the list. Continue to redesign until all of the barriers are crossed off. Again, this is not a recommended practice for every teacher for every lesson. In fact, it may not be a recommended practice for every teacher for even one lesson a week. But we're slowing down this process so that we can use reflective practice to really study the ways that we can make subtle changes in design and have big impacts on learning. The digital version of the template will allow you to click into the interactive guidelines on the CAST webpage. So for example, if you feel that there were learners in the video that you noticed that were unable to navigate some of the executive function requirements of the lesson, encourage your team to reframe what you noticed to say, the lesson had a high level of executive function skills, and for learners who maybe didn't have those skills, that was a barrier. The learners were not the barrier, but the demand of the lesson, the fact that you had to come in knowing how to do 1, 2, and 3 around executive function was a barrier. So how can we design that lesson slightly differently to provide options and supports for learners around executive functions? If perhaps if that is the area that you identify as being needed, if you click on that word executive function, it will take you into a section of the guidelines that uses some strategy language that's also aligned with the research, so you can go a little bit deeper. And then your team will begin to articulate the second iteration of the design. I think in the old days of teaching, we used to think that we designed once, and then at some point along the way, we realized we probably have to engage in redesign. But what we've learned from the world of design outside of education is that design is an ongoing, never-ending, iterative process. So this is not just our second final design, it's our second iteration. And were we to design again and teach the lesson again, we might find ourselves in a third iteration or a fourth. And then as a team, consider the reflection questions on the design and redesign template. Answer those questions in any way you like, and please post your team's response to Moodle. The questions are here in this purple section, and as you consider these questions, please consider your focus. What did you learn about learner variability? What did you learn about curriculum? And what did you learn about yourselves as learning designers? And again, using the lens of your focus as one way of answering those questions, and of course, feeling free to answer them broadly as well. So you'll answer those questions in that purple box and then post your answers to, in any way you like, audio, video, images, text. One person can post your team's response to Moodle. This slide here is for teams that are previewing the entire video right now and do not yet have a plan for doing the work. So if this is your first time through and you've just previewed these slides, pause now and map out a plan for your collaborative work over time. Divide the steps across 3 months or customize your own schedule. How will you engage in design, teaching, analyzing, and redesign? Thank you.